Welcome back to the Business Book Club. We are diving into a classic this week, a book that's practically a Bible for anyone in business, especially entrepreneurs. We're talking about Influence, the Psychology of Persuasion by Robert Cialdini.
It's amazing, really. This book, what always gets me about it is that Cialdini didn't just come up with some theories about persuasion. No, he actually went out there and spent 3 years, embedded with what he calls compliance professionals. Salespeople, fundraisers, advertisers, the people who get you to say yes.
He was on the front lines. He didn't just, sit in his office and think about this stuff.
Exactly.
But here's the thing. This book isn't about manipulation. It's about understanding the psychology behind, why we say yes and how those principles work in our daily lives so that we can become more savvy consumers and hopefully more persuasive entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head there. Cialdini's main point is that even though we all think of ourselves as very rational human beings, a lot of times we're running on autopilot. Just triggered by very specific cues. And the scary part is that most of us don't even realize what these triggers are.
Right.
They're hidden.
He gives this example. I love this example. He talks about the male robin that instinctively attacks a clump of red breast feathers. Even though it's not a rival robin, it's just feathers.
Yeah.
But those feathers are what Cialdini calls trigger features.
It's a bit like a shortcut.
Yeah.
A shortcut in the brain, and that's what compliance professionals can and do exploit.
Well, let's bring it down to earth here for a second.
Yeah.
He talks about this study where people are waiting in line for a Xerox machine, and they let someone cut in front of them if that person just said, because I need to make copies.
I love that. It's so simple, just that word, because.
Yeah.
It becomes like a trigger. It's like, okay, step aside. I've got copies to make. They don't even give a reason, and people just comply.
It's wild.
They're just like, sure, go ahead.
It makes me think, could we just throw the word because in our daily lives and get away with all sorts of things? But how could our listeners use this? I don't know if ethically is the right word, but let's say you are trying to grow your email list. Could you incorporate because into that call to action? Would that increase signups?
Yeah. It's definitely worth testing. Ethical persuasion is all about finding these little triggers and sort of gently nudging people in the right direction. And I think that's really the key. It's not about tricking anyone. It's about presenting things in a way that is in line with our natural tendencies.
Yeah. So Cialdini outlines 6 key principles of persuasion in the book, and I think we'll go through these one by one. The first one is this idea of reciprocity.
Ah, yes.
Which is the deep-seated obligation that we all feel to repay favors.
This is a really interesting one because it feels like a universal social contract, right? If someone does something for you, you almost feel indebted to them. You want to do something back for them, even if you haven't asked for the favor in the first place.
Yeah. And then that sense of indebtedness makes you more likely to comply with a request later on down the line. He gives the example of Joe and the Coke.
Yeah.
Joe buys a raffle ticket from someone after that person bought him a Coke, even though he didn't ask for the Coke in the first place. It's like that small, unsolicited gift created a sense of obligation.
It really is incredible how that works. It's almost like our minds are wired for that. Like, oh, you did something nice for me. I got to do something nice for you. And it doesn't even have to be material things. It could be information,
right?
Like a free consultation or even just your time and attention listening to someone.
I always think of the supermarket,
right?
Like when they're handing out those free samples.
Yes, exactly.
Like you try a piece of cheese, and then all of a sudden you feel like you have to buy the whole block of cheese.
Totally. Yeah, or even when you go to Costco.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I always walk out with more than I intended.
Yeah. We see this everywhere, right? Think about politicians who are always doing favors for each other, like that whole idea of log rolling to get bills passed. Or even, friend helps you move, and then later you feel like, oh, I got to help him move now.
Exactly. It's sort of a universal thing.
So for our listeners, all the entrepreneurs out there, how can you use this idea of reciprocity ethically in your business? How can you bake that into your business without feeling manipulative? Could you offer a free trial of your product? Maybe a free downloadable PDF guide with some useful information? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, those are great examples. And I think the key here is to provide genuine value up front. It shouldn't feel like a trick.
Yeah.
It should feel like, hey, I'm giving you something that's truly valuable to you, and then hopefully they'll reciprocate. And it creates that sense of goodwill.
Right. Okay, let's move on to the next principle. This one is commitment and consistency. We like to be consistent with our actions and our past statements. I mean, it makes us feel like we are reliable people, like we have integrity.
Exactly. And that is something that can be exploited in very subtle ways.
Right.
Cialdini gives the example of the tactics that the Chinese used during the Korean War to get American prisoners of war to collaborate. What they would do is start with these tiny requests, like getting them to write down harmless statements,
Right.
and gradually escalate from there.
That's wild. But, I can see how that works. You commit to something small, and then you feel like, oh, well, now I've got to keep going. I've got to stay consistent with myself.
Absolutely. Even a small commitment, even something seemingly insignificant, can set the stage for much larger acts of compliance down the line.
So how can we use that in our businesses?
Well, I think it's about encouraging small initial commitments from your audience, whether it's signing up for a newsletter, liking a social media post, or taking a short quiz.
Like that foot in the door technique.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you start small, you build that relationship, and then you gradually lead them towards a larger commitment, like making a purchase.
Right. And you see this all the time in marketing, right? Like those free trial offers are a classic example. Sign up for the free trial, and then when it's over, you're much more likely to convert to a paid subscription because you've already invested your time and effort.
Exactly. You've already put some skin in the game. And it's not just digital products. Think about weight loss clinics. They encourage clients to write down their goals and share them with friends and family.
Right.
And that public commitment makes them more likely to stick with the program.
But there's a fine line between using this ethically and being manipulative.
Absolutely. And I think the key is transparency and authenticity.
Yeah.
You don't want to pressure people into making commitments that they don't actually want to make.
Right. Okay, so we've covered reciprocity, commitment, and consistency. Up next is social proof. The idea that we look to other people's behavior to guide our own decisions, especially when we're not sure what to do.
Right. It's kind of like a safety in numbers thing.
Right.
If everybody else is doing it, it must be okay.
Yeah. Like the classic example is canned laughter on TV shows.
Oh, yeah. I hate
It's terrible.
right.
It's so cheesy.
But it still makes us laugh.
It does work, though.
It does,
Yeah.
even though we know it's fake.
Actually, when I first started my business, I really leaned on social proof a lot. I put testimonials on my website from clients, and it made a huge difference. People were much more likely to trust me if they saw that other people had already had positive experiences with my work.
That's a perfect example of how to use social proof effectively.
Yeah.
It can be a really powerful tool, but, as with anything, there can be a darker side to this principle. Cialdini gives the chilling example of the murder of Kitty Genovese. She was attacked and murdered in New York City, and 38 of her neighbors witnessed the attack but did nothing to help.
Yeah, that's such a horrible example, but why didn't anyone help?
It's something that psychologists call the bystander effect, where each individual witness kind of assumes that someone else is going to take action, someone else will call the police, so nobody does. In a weird way, the presence of all these witnesses actually decreases the likelihood that anyone will step in.
So if you're ever in an emergency situation, how can you use this knowledge of social proof to help yourself? Like, what could you do?
That's a great question, and the key is to be specific. So instead of just shouting, "help," which can kind of diffuse responsibility amongst everyone, you want to single someone out, you could say something like, "You in the red shirt, call 911."
So you're assigning responsibility.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow. That's a great takeaway. It really just highlights how these principles that Cialdini's talking about, they have real-world consequences.
For sure. They can be applied to so many different areas of life. It's about understanding how these psychological mechanisms work.
Right.
And using them to your advantage, whether you're trying to grow your business or just navigate those tricky situations.
Okay, so we've seen how powerful social proof can be, like even in those really intense situations. But let's move on to Cialdini's next principle, liking. This one seems pretty straightforward, right? I mean, we're more likely to say yes to people that we like.
Yeah, you'd think so, right. But it's a lot more nuanced than just being friendly. For instance, Cialdini talks about how physical attractiveness can actually make a difference, Attractive people tend to be more persuasive, and they even get more help when they need it. It's called the halo effect.
Oh, wow. So good looks can actually give you an edge in life. Huh, that's interesting. I have noticed that when I'm networking, if I make a little bit more effort to dress well and present myself confidently, people do seem more receptive to what I'm saying.
Yeah, absolutely. It's all about, putting your best foot forward. It's not about being vain or anything like that. And it's not just physical appearance, A genuine compliment, for example, can go a long way in building that connection.
Right, right. I'm thinking of the story that Cialdini tells about Joe Girard, the car salesman.
Mm.
He used to send out "I like you" cards to all his customers every month.
I love that example. So cheesy, but so effective.
I know, I know. I mean, it sounds so corny, but he was consistently the top car salesman in the world.
Yeah, I mean, it really shows that there's power in just making people feel seen and appreciated, And think about how you could apply this in your own business. Maybe it's sending a handwritten thank you note to a new customer or highlighting a positive review on your website.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, it's such a simple gesture, but it could have a huge impact. What about similarity? Cialdini says we tend to like people who are similar to us. Is that right?
That's absolutely right. It could be shared interests, similar backgrounds, or even just a similar sense of humor. I mean, salespeople use this all the time. They try to find that common ground
Right.
with a potential customer. If you went to the same school or if you're both into, I don't know, marathon running.
Right, right. So if you can connect with your audience, on a more personal level, it's going to boost your credibility and make them much more open to what you're saying.
Exactly. It builds rapport. It's that feeling of, hey, we're on the same team here.
Cialdini even talks about how negative associations can influence liking. Like, he gives the example of the weatherman. They always get hate mail when the weather's bad, even though obviously they can't control the weather.
It's so true. I mean, it's totally irrational, but we can't help but make those judgments.
Yeah, based on those associations. Wow. So I guess it's important to be mindful of, the company you keep, both online and offline. Because if you're associated with something negative, even if it's totally unfair, it can affect how people perceive you.
Perception is everything.
Okay, so let's talk about the next principle. This one's a little bit unsettling. Authority. Cialdini argues that we're kind of conditioned almost to obey authority figures. And a lot of times we do it without even questioning it.
Yeah, that's right. It's deep-seated in us. Think about that Milgram experiment where they had people administering, what they believed were painful electric shocks to another person, and they kept doing it.
Yeah, I read about that. It's crazy.
Just because a scientist in a lab coat told them to.
It's terrifying. It
Yeah.
really shows how easily we can succumb to authority pressure, even when it goes against, our own sense of what's right.
Yeah, it's a powerful force, and we see it everywhere. Think about how people are more likely to follow the instructions of someone who's wearing a uniform, even if that person's just a security guard. Or how we automatically give more weight to the opinion of a doctor, even if we don't really know anything about their expertise.
Right, right. It's like we just automatically defer to anyone who seems like they're in a position of authority.
Hmm.
So how can we as business owners, how can we use this idea of authority ethically?
Well, it's not about pretending to be something you're not,
Yeah.
but it is about establishing yourself as a credible expert in your field. So maybe that means showcasing your credentials, highlighting your years of experience, maybe sharing some testimonials, really anything that reinforces your expertise in a genuine way.
Right. So for consumers, I guess, it's about being discerning.
Hmm.
Just because someone has a fancy title or a uniform doesn't necessarily mean that they're always right.
Exactly. Question authority. Don't be afraid to do your research, get a second opinion. Don't just blindly accept things just because somebody who seems like they know what they're talking about tells you to.
Right. Challenge the status quo. Okay, good. We've got one more principle to go. Scarcity. This one really taps into our fear of missing out, doesn't it?
It really does. I mean, we all want what we can't have, right? We put more value on things that are scarce or hard to get.
Right. And marketers know this. That's why they're always using those, limited time offers or exclusive deals.
The ticking clock.
Yeah.
It gets us every time.
Because it creates that sense of urgency. Like, oh, if I don't act now, I'm going to miss out.
Cialdini calls it psychological reactance. It's like when our freedom to choose is restricted, we react by wanting that thing even more.
It's kind of like that forbidden fruit. The more you tell someone they can't have something, the more they're going to want it. And it's not just about material goods either, right? It can be applied to information as well.
Absolutely. He gives the example of salespeople who emphasize the exclusivity of their information. Maybe they have some inside scoop about like a potential beef shortage.
Yeah.
And those salespeople who emphasize that scarcity were much more successful.
Oh, wow.
They got way more orders.
So knowledge, especially if it's exclusive, can be a really powerful tool of persuasion.
Yeah, it's like if you're the only one who knows something, that makes you valuable.
Right. So how can entrepreneurs, use this principle ethically? Could you offer a limited edition product? Or maybe highlight the benefits of your service that you can't get anywhere else?
Those are great ideas. And, even something as simple as emphasizing the limited availability of your time. You could say, I'm only taking on a few new clients this month.
Right, right. It creates that sense of exclusivity, makes your services seem even more valuable.
Exactly. But again, the key is to be honest and transparent. You don't want to create false scarcity, just to manipulate people. It has to be genuine.
Right. It's finding that sweet spot, between highlighting what makes your offering special and being authentic.
Right. And giving people a reason to feel like they need to act now without resorting to any trickery.
Okay, so there you have it. Cialdini's 6 principles of persuasion.
Reciprocity, commitment and consistency, social proof, liking, authority, and of course, scarcity.
Yeah, it's like a whole toolkit, really, for understanding and even influencing human behavior.
It is. And I think as we've seen throughout this deep dive, they can be incredibly powerful tools, especially for entrepreneurs.
Right, they can help you build those strong relationships with customers, increase sales, and create some really effective marketing campaigns. But it's not just about using these principles on other people. It's about recognizing when they're being used on you.
Oh, for sure.
Because, let's be honest, we are bombarded with persuasion attempts every single day. I mean, it's everywhere. Ads, social media, even just our personal interactions.
It really is. You have to have your guard up.
You do.
Yeah.
But by understanding these 6 principles, you can make those more informed decisions and avoid being manipulated.
It's like a shield.
Yeah. It is. A shield to protect you from those unwanted influences. So I have a challenge for our listeners. Think back to a time when one of these principles was used on you. Maybe it was a time you felt pressured to do something you didn't want to do, or a sales pitch that was just so effective you couldn't resist.
Oh, yeah. We've all been there.
We have.
Yeah.
But how did it make you feel?
Yeah. It's good to reflect on that.
Yeah. What did you learn from that experience? And most importantly, how can you use that knowledge to be a little bit more discerning in the future?
That's the key takeaway here.
Yeah, it is. It is. Because remember, these principles aren't inherently good or bad. It's really all about how they're used.
Intention is everything.
Right. By understanding the psychology of persuasion, you can become a more effective communicator, a more persuasive entrepreneur, and of course, a much more savvy consumer.
Yeah, knowledge is power.
It is. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into influence, the psychology of persuasion.
It's been a pleasure.
We hope you found it insightful. We hope you found it empowering. And if you're ready for more deep dives into those really impactful, powerful business books, be sure to subscribe to the Business Book Club. We have a whole library of wisdom just waiting to be unlocked, so stay tuned. We'll see you next time. Now that's a wrap for this episode of the Business Book Club. If you enjoyed the ride, make sure to subscribe so you'll never miss our next deep dive. By the way, if you're looking for a detailed breakdown of this book, head over to my other channel, The Weekend Book Club. There, you'll find a book summary video that dives even deeper into the key concepts, plus a free book summary to download. The link is in the show notes below. Don't miss out. Until next time, keep learning, keep growing, and we'll see you in the next episode.